Picture this. You're 16, dressed in your best, your hair carefully done, and every move you've been taught is meant to impress. Today, you're being introduced to the king, the person your family hopes will secure their future. You're one of a dozen girls presented at court, each silently hoping to be chosen. But after one glance, the king moves on. By the end of the day, you're not picked. There's no polite dismissal, no return home. Instead, you're taken, forced to stay mistreated and discarded. In those times, being rejected didn't mean freedom. It meant you no longer belonged to your family. You became vulnerable and, worse, unprotected. This was a reality for many young women whose stories never made it into the official records. Their names were erased, but their experiences were real. In medieval courts, behind the polished ceremonies and political marriages, there was a much harsher truth. Families would send their daughters to the royal court hoping for a royal match. It was a chance at power, safety, and a future. But for every girl chosen, many were left behind. And being left behind wasn't safe. Take Elena of Varro Hill. She was just 17 when she was brought to King Aldich's court. Her family gave everything for the opportunity. New clothes, tutors, even borrowing money to make a good impression. Elena was smart, talented, and well-prepared. Her parents believed she would be selected. But the king picked someone else, the daughter of a wealthier duke. After that, Elena was ignored. She stayed in the guest quarters, and on the third night, soldiers entered her room. There was no help. In that world, once a girl was passed over, she was seen as worthless, not a person, but a possession. And Elena wasn't the only one. There was also Adelina, a quiet girl from the marshes. Her father thought her good manners and modesty would win favor. But after being publicly mocked at dinner, he left without her. She was forced to work in the kitchens, where guards called her names and abused her. When she resisted, they hurt her. By age 20, she was sold to a group of mercenaries. No name, no rights, just property. Back then, a woman's worth was based on how she looked, who she knew, and whether she could catch the king's eye. Once rejected, they were seen as damaged and unworthy. Some were sold off, some hidden in back rooms to serve guests. They weren't killed, but many might have wished they were. No laws protected these women. Religious leaders ignored their suffering. Nobles looked away. If women spoke out, they were called crazy or accused of lying. In one record, a girl named Marion used her own blood to write on a wall. He looked at me once and forgot, but they never stopped looking. Elena eventually escaped. A nun found her wandering near the road, injured and starving. She stayed at the convent for years, silent, until one day she spoke. I wasn't chosen, but I was taken. She never mentioned the king again. Instead, she helped other women like her. Similar stories happened across Europe. In France, England, the Holy Roman Empire. Women who were overlooked by royalty were often abused by others in power. These weren't tales of love or romance. They were about control. But not all stories ended in silence. Some women survived. A few even found ways to fight back. Rumors spread about Elena again, years after she vanished from the convent. People claimed she had returned, not as a nun, but as someone seeking justice. Some said she targeted those who hurt women, helping others escape the same fate she once suffered. She wasn't chosen, but she lived, and so did many others, forgotten by history but not gone. Some learned how to survive. Some carried their pain in silence. But the fire inside them, that never went out. They say she memorized the guards' patrols. They say she silenced a man who mocked a woman's cries. They say a scorched royal crest was once found outside a barracks, next to a single woman's shoe. Was it true? Maybe. But sometimes what people call legend is simply truth no one dared to write down. Now, let's look at someone real. Isolde Brenton. She was turned away by Prince Harlan at a public feast in front of hundreds of nobles. He dismissed her as plain. Her father, devastated by the shame, died soon after. With no family and no dowry, Isolde was kept at the palace, not as a guest, but in the laundry quarters. That's where the guards found her. For 2 years, she was passed from man to man, treated as if she didn't matter. Then one day, a fire broke out in the soldiers' barracks. Several men died. No one suspected her at first. But when the guard captain confronted her, she didn't flinch. "I didn't enjoy it," she said, "but I prayed for it every night." 3 days later, she was executed. Her grave had no name, but the women who worked beside her carved her name into a piece of soapstone behind the laundry shed. That stone is still there, worn but readable. Isolde didn't just endure. She left a mark. Now, picture this. You're born into poverty. Your father sells everything just to get you a chance at court. You think this is your way out. But when the king doesn't choose you, you're left to the guards. That was Mira's story. She came from the north, with no title and no wealth, only hope. She was gentle, gifted with needlework, and sang like a bell. But when court season ended, she was not selected. Her father was refused entry to bring her home. So the guards took her instead. But Mira remembered every word, every face, every moment. And she wrote it all down, names, dates, places. During a festival, when the guards were drinking, she escaped, dressed as a washerwoman. She fled to a monastery that welcomed women scribes. Years later, a mysterious manuscript surfaced. It listed the crimes of King Edri's court, detailed, damning, and anonymous. No one knew the author, but the final line read, "I was not chosen, but I was not forgotten." These stories didn't vanish in the rooms where they happened. They spread, quietly, in whispers and warnings. In one southern kingdom, daughters of former court girls formed a secret group called the Veil. They offered shelter to girls rejected and abused by the court. When soldiers tried to storm their hideout, they were found stripped of weapons and tied to trees, marked with the words, "We are not yours." The Veil didn't fight with swords. They fought with unity and silence. And in a world where women weren't allowed to speak, silence was powerful. Not every act of defiance was loud. Some women resisted in quiet, lasting ways. Elaine was sent to a general after failing to impress a duke. She spent 5 years under his control. She had 2 children, both taken from her. She faced cruelty, cold nights, and isolation. But each winter, she walked barefoot through the snow, giving food to poor women, others like her, forgotten or cast aside. She taught them how to sew, how to care for wounds, how to survive. Elaine didn't lead a revolt. She built a lifeline. Not all women had that chance. Many died nameless, voiceless, unacknowledged. They weren't just forgotten. They were never counted in the first place. But silence leaves a trace. And even erased stories can weigh on the conscience of history. Because for every royal who turned away, someone with power stepped in to take advantage. For every girl who dreamed of a better life, some woke up to a nightmare. It's easy to romanticize the medieval courts, the dresses, the dances, the pageantry. But behind that, it was a battlefield. And many women were casualties. They weren't chosen. They were claimed. But some became more. They became whispers that never stopped. Shadows that followed guilty men. Names scratched into stone. Symbols etched into places no one talks about. So what's their legacy? Kings are remembered. Their names are carved in stone. Their triumphs are sung. But the women, Elena, Isolde, Mira, Elaine, their names were raised, called unworthy, unsuitable, unclaimed. And yet here we are, saying them out loud. What do we learn? That unchecked power always finds someone to harm. That even stripped of titles, women still carry strength. And that rejection followed by abuse is not failure. It's injustice. These women didn't fall short. The system failed them. The guards violated them. The world looked away. But they, through pain, through silence, through small acts of rebellion, survived. Their strength lived on in others, in daughters, in stories, in anonymous writings and quiet acts of care. This isn't just a story about the past. It's a story about what happens when power forgets compassion. So next time someone tells you about courtly love or royal beauty, remember the others, the girls who were cast aside, the ones who never got to choose. Their stories matter. Because if we don't remember them, who will? The real legacy of these women isn't in palaces or history books. It's in the courage they carried when no one was watching. They were dismissed, silenced, and used, but they left behind more than scars. They left stories, warnings, and strength. Their names may have been hidden, but their impact echoes. Every forgotten girl, every rejected woman, reminds us that power without accountability destroys, and silence, when shared, becomes a weapon. This isn't just history. It's a mirror. So we remember Elena, Isolde, Mira, Elaine, not as victims, but as voices. Because when we speak their truths, we refuse to let them disappear again. Their stories matter. And through us, they live on.